feels when the water's on the other side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side. And I remember standing tippy-toe, eye to eye next to you, sizing you up, I'm gonna tell you everything. Got another year and another guy and another guy and another year. Just don't many your eyes are so descriptive. And I don't need an inner shell telling me that you're so very afraid. With us lying down upon each other's side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side. And I remember standing tippy-toe, eye to eye next to you, sizing you up, I'm gonna tell you everything. Got another year and another guy and another guy and another year. Just don't many your eyes are so descriptive. I don't need an inner sailor telling me that you're so very afraid. With us lying down upon each other's side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side. Funny how it feels when the water's on the other side.
Because this craziness, this sickness in this country now is shot through the whole society. You know, people in law enforcement have also succumbed to right-wing extremism and white nationalism. Again, what this points up is how pervasive and vast a problem this is, and we will be dealing with it for a long time.
Welcome to my band.
Tell us a rapping joke.
What song is it, Fitzy?
It's for the others.
Okay, this is for the Evers.
Woo!
anything at once, man.
Anytime, man.
Good story, brah.
Raph, seriously? Raph. Focus. Raph. Raph. You're not Clint. You can join us anytime.
Those are the rules, are they?
Check. No, Raph's good.
Fucking way she goes.
Sorry?
It's a fucking way she goes. Sometimes she goes. Sometimes she don't go. It's the fucking way she goes, boys.
Science.
Clint says.
You learned to reject. Learn how to reject red flags. Don't do this. No.
She struck off a post, kissed my lips in the doorway, got my drink and now her favorite thing. Standing on the front porch and she's fighting back the teardrops. Baby's got the time to kind. She opened up a suitcase and now came a tornado. Get them back for all the honeybees. Wake me some morning and she's lying in my bed, and the sunshine lies and gives me a bright big smile. And I opened up my eyes and her ivy covered morning was rattled trash fresh over me.
Special thanks to our conductor, Mr. Clint Plank.
When you work late nights in dark, repulsive conditions, you probably expect to get paid. They don't. There are thousands of hard-working, underpaid men and women in your city right now. They're called musicians. Any given night of the week, they put themselves on the line for you and your drunk friends. The problem? You're not even there. The beer he got paid with tonight will never keep him warm. That guitar she still owes 12 payments on will never love her back. You can help. Go to your local dive bar right now. Pay the cover charge. Sit down with one of these outcasts and put yourself in their shoes. Take one home. Hell, take two if you want. Support local music. Sleep with a musician tonight. Without you, all we have left are ballads.
I'm a no good heartbreaker. I'm a liar. And I'm a cheat. I only got one life to live. I'm not no other. My mama taught me how to land on my feet. I have this way of finding trouble. It's never far. Wherever I go, take one step after another. You gotta move like a rolling stone. Hey, you gotta move like a rolling stone. Oh yeah. Hey, you gotta move like a rolling stone. Oh yeah. Well, I woke up this morning with the devil knocking on my door. Well, he came without warning with a deal, you know, I just couldn't ignore. I do believe, my pretty lady, that it's time for me to move along. Take one step after another. You gotta move like a rolling stone. Hey, you gotta move like a rolling stone. Oh yeah. Hey, you gotta move like a rolling stone. Oh yeah. You gotta move like a rolling stone. Oh yeah. Hey, you gotta move like a rolling stone. Oh yeah. Hey, you gotta move like a rolling stone. Oh yeah.
I love this song.
You gotta move like a rolling stone.
Well, hey there, internet people. It is I, Big Ugly Jim, doing my thing that I do. Yeah, it should be a fun stream today. If it's not, then I blame Obama. Because that seems to be like the thing that everybody does. I see YYC Live Music is on. Hello, my kiddo. How you doing? I hope you're doing well. Me, I'm doing good. I also see Have This Too. I'm assuming you're a real human being. If you are, welcome. Enjoy. Hopefully it'll be a fun time for everyone. We're gonna talk a bunch of stuff and just pass some time. I'm gonna start off with just hyping up the fact that I have a gig tonight. I'm pretty stoked about it. I will be playing the bass with my band, The Bodies of Everest, as part of a fundraiser for Bear Clan Patrol Calgary, which is a group that I absolutely love and I have regularly done stuff on this channel for. They're fantastic. They do work with unhoused people, which is a weird thing to say. I don't know when unhoused became like the word for it, and I remember recoiling when I first heard it, but now it just comes out of my face. So apparently, indoctrination works. Keep going. Yeah, they do work with unhoused people, with indigenous people here in Calgary, and they do great stuff. And I'm a big, huge fan, supporter fella. So yeah, hopefully it'll be a great show. There's a bunch of bands. Walk Alone, the Black Roses, I think is the name of the second band. And then Cypher 77, which for fans of Calgary rap music is Iron Lion and Ricka Razor Sharp's new project, so that's actually pretty sweet. Then there's going to be some burlesque dancers, people like Carla Marks, Bitch Sassity, Bielissima, and there are others, I can't remember their names, but from Cabaret Calgary, which is a really awesome group. And then my band will play, and then... Fuck, I always forget the name of the goddamn headliner. Buddies of mine from all over that are awesome. Oh, fuck, I keep thinking like Before I Pray or whatever. So they, some of the guys used to be in After the Prophet, and so that's stuck in my head. It's not that, but they're awesome. I can't remember their name because I'm stupid, but they're awesome. It'll be fun. And all of the proceeds go to Bear Clan Patrol. We're all donating our time, so it'll be awesome. I'm a huge fan of that, and I think that will be a great night. So if you're in the area of the border crossing in Calgary, come on down and have a beer or 17 with us. I had an interesting thought. I came up with a new definition for the word cuckold, and that is having a mob violently overtake your government and murder you, or chant about murdering you, and then going on TV and being like, "No, guy, I need their votes, so they didn't do anything wrong." That's a new kind of cuckolding, and it's brought to you by Fox News and the Republican Party of the United States of America. I am a Canadian, and yes, you've probably already guessed, if you're new to the channel, I'm a shitty leftist. I would not describe myself as being a bread tuber because that's not me. But I definitely will be spitting forth my vile forms of utopian garbage, and it'll be good for me. Probably if you're a hardcore capitalist or a hardcore patriot, you're probably gonna really enjoy everything I have to say. And that's a hope. I can win you over. You never know. But yeah, it's a surprisingly nice day here in the city of Calgary, Alberta, Canada, which I'm very happy about because we've had some crappier weather of late. So I'm 100% on board with it being halfway decent out, sunny and warm. Winter is coming. We will be dealing with all the snow soon enough. But so far, so good. All right, so I'm gonna update my title because I have a title because I'm a grown up like that. I want to talk about a real problem in the world, and that is unvaccinated terminations. And just it's a sad world we live in. It's not really a sad world we live in. I actually feel like unvaccinated terminations, it sucks that we're there. It really does. And I think it's less about people losing their job and more about people giving up their job for their personal politics. I think it's interesting though, because you're seeing a lot of stuff on the news. People are going like, now there's these draconian measures in place, and I have to get the jab. I hate it when they say the jab. For the record, that's like anti-vaxxer 101, and it's so fucking annoying. I genuinely despise anytime I hear the jab. I'm like, oh, you're gonna be dumb. But the people are upset about it, and I get why they're upset. I do. I totally understand people being frustrated at the fact that their livelihoods are essentially on the line here. I totally understand it. I just don't give a shit. And what it boils down to me is I really do see an important balance between personal freedom, which is fucking important. I am a libertarian socialist. I really believe in personal liberty, but I also believe in personal responsibility. And I'm gonna take a moment and I'm gonna explain why I think it matters still. Because there's a lot of people that'll go, vaccines are, if you're vaccinated, you shouldn't even worry about it. Well, first off, there's still a lot of people who are immunocompromised. That's just facts. Second off, much like your natural immunity, vaccinations aren't perfect. Nothing will prevent you from getting sick. It will massively build your system's ability to fight off getting sick, and if you do get sick, massively build up your system's ability to withstand that. But that ain't the same thing, right? So then the topic of the percentage comes up a lot. It's 97% of people will be fine, and fine is in giant quotes because we don't know about long-term effects. Kind of like the same thing you always bitch about when you talk about the long-term effects of vaccine, and we haven't had enough time. We haven't had enough time to figure out the long-term effects of COVID, but we know that there are people who have neurodeficits. We know that there are people who have all kinds of problems as a result. So that, for me, that factors into the equation. But even if you just said, okay, 3% of the population, fine. I'm not okay with throwing 3% of the population to the wolves, even though I think we're overpopulated. I don't feel like a Thanos snap is the answer. And the problem is that unlike, the flu, which we all talk about and go, oh, it's just like the flu. Unlike that, the flu kind of comes in little tiny waves. This is a worldwide crash that we're having as a result of this thing. And that means 3% of the global population, if that does indeed wind up being the number, that's a bunch of people. And that actually, in any city, you can't withstand having 3% of your population suddenly, in a very short period, fucked over and dead, and your hospital strain and all that stuff that we're seeing right fucking now. Vaccines are vital. They're important for dealing with that kind of shit. And, sorry if people don't like that. I'm genuinely sorry. I do feel that there is such a thing as the needs of the many outweighing the needs of the few. That's not always the case, but in a case like this where you're really, at this point, it comes down to I choose to get a little pokey in my arm and I feel like I'm not 100% comfortable for a day or two. Like, compare that to people dying. You're being an asshole. Pure and simple. I don't want to be an asshole, so I did the thing. I did the responsible thing. I got vaccinated. I am a fan of the science because I like science. I think science has done a lot of really cool stuff. It's not perfect, but it's done better stuff than the wackadoo anti-vaxxer people who brought back polio. Thanks for that. And it's the thing about this. I can't speak to everywhere on Earth, but I can tell you this much: where I live here in beautiful Calgary, Alberta, Canada, home of the Disney World Canada, huge attraction up here. A lot of people come. Here, our government made a rule and said, okay, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that everybody can voluntarily decide if they want to join this program or not. And the program requires, if you're a bar, you can either close at 10 or you can stay open normal bar hours, and people can show up and they can have proof of vaccination, or proof of a recent negative test, or proof of a valid medical exemption. That way you are most protecting the people who are in that room, and we don't have to worry about it. And then the city hall said, yeah, we're actually just going to make that a mandate. Fuck it, we're doing it. If you're a bar and you're open, you're living by these rules. And I'm fine with that. The company that I work at is basically doing the exact same thing. And the one big key, and the thing I really love about it, is that you have the out. You can personal freedom yourself all you want. But you have to provide proof that you have not been exposed to the COVID virus and are not currently sick with COVID. That means that you're probably going to need to go and get a test. And those tests are private. Those are not the go to the doctor and get a test, because those tests are paid for by the public. And if you're choosing to opt out of this program, you can pay for your own fucking test. And I am okay with that, because as much as it has sort of a vibe of private healthcare, which I'm not a fan of, this isn't healthcare. This is validating that you're safe to be around. And you can fucking pay for that, right? If you are somebody who gets sick with COVID, whether vaccinated or not, I believe that you should have access to public medical support. I won't be one of those people who's like, well, if you get COVID and you were unvaccinated, you deserve it, because I don't believe you did. Nobody deserves to get sick and go to the hospital. That is a founding concept of universal health care, even if your choices are what cause it. Because you know what? I'm a smoker. I'm not happy about this, but I'm a smoker. You can tell by my gravelly voice. And one day I'm going to have lung problems. I mean, it's not guaranteed, but not all that unlikely. Add to that, I'm not the skinniest fella on earth. There's a bunch of lifestyle decisions that I have made that may not be perfect for staying alive long term. I'm fine with that. And I understand that that means that there are consequences, but my public healthcare system is there to, even when it's the direct result of my stupid, to look after me. And the reason for that is we're good people. Good people aren't going to get all bunged up about whether or not you deserve help. You need help, you get help. That's a good program. It shouldn't be about how much money you have. It shouldn't be about how worthy of saving you are, like a meritocracy kind of system. It should just be about, oh, you need help? We can do that. That's a much more human perspective, in my opinion. And I find it really gross when people I know share memes about like piss testing the poors and stuff. And it's just like, fuck off. Fuck off. Who cares if some person is doing the druggos and they are on welfare? So the fuck what? They are medicating. Let's have a better welfare system that makes it so that they're not feeling the need to be self-medicating. You know what? People are going to smoke weed. They're going to smoke weed because it's fun to smoke weed. Getting all pissed out of shape, probably not worth it. Anyways, the company that I work for has basically said the mandate, that's our thing. If you want to come to work and you don't want to, get vaccinated, you have to provide, and I don't remember how often, but some kind of periodic, privately paid for COVID test. Now, I would rather those people just did the fucking right thing and got vaccinated. but I'm not the boss king of the world, so I don't get to make these decisions. But that would be the better plan. That would be the gooder thing. But there is that out that, you know what, if you're fucking foam at the mouth freedom patriot bullshit, if you feel that your freedoms are more important than public safety, you can feel that all you want, and we're not going to force you to take a vaccination, but you're going to have to prove that you're safe for work. Fit for work. It's a funny term, right? We use that in various fields to describe being able to do your job. And I would say that you could do your job if you were an asymptomatic carrier, but again, you're not fit to be around other people because you could make them sick and fuck your face. The vaccine isn't the only answer. It's far from the only answer. What the vaccine is doing right now is as best as possible, and the other things that we're doing is as best as possible mitigating the threat that comes from people who are getting sick in mass numbers, because we have a public healthcare system here. The same is true in places where you have a private healthcare system. You can't handle that kind of demand on your system. Your system will fail because it's not meant for your 3% of your population or whatever to be dying over a short window. That's just facts. We had long wait times before the COVID. It's not gotten better. But yeah, that's the thing. So I've heard that like there are cops in the States who are saying, like Chicago, I think, was saying that, our cops are gonna angrily not get vaccinated ever, and if when that went through, they were like, a bunch of police aren't gonna come to work. I don't know if that actually happened, but sometimes the trash takes itself out. Sorry, that's right. That's an all cops are bad moment. But honestly, if your job is to serve and protect, and you can't protect other people from the virus, probably shouldn't have that job. Probably a sign of bigger problems to come. And if you want, you can always jump in my chat and tell me what an idiot I am, or hop on Discord and tell me what an idiot I am, and we can have a conversation. But honestly, don't think you're going to sway me on that one. Too many interactions with too many police officers for me to ever be like, oh, there's probably some good ones out there. I do believe there are good cops. I just believe that doesn't matter. So if I say a blanket statement like all cops are bad, it's because the good cops don't stop the bad cops. So by default, they become bad. But that's just my 2 cents. And I am not the God King of the world. But what if I was? What if I updated my title and said something along the lines of, if I was the God King of the world? I'm going somewhere with this, I assure you, as soon as I figure out how to type. What if I was the God King? And I have to move this up because that's the world we live in. And I can cut over seamlessly. That's not the right view. Ha! I'm so good at life. And now I have to move this up. Oof, nailing the whole being a streamer thing today. What can I say? My mom's proud of me. What can I tell you? All right, that's better. So what if I was the God King? So this comes because last week I didn't end up saving the video because of reasons, but I did. We did a watch of the Arts Commons Calgary mayoral debate. That's correct. I live in the great city of Calgary. And that debate was an interesting one. And unfortunately, I don't think that the stream was that interesting. I wasn't sad to remove that stream because it was less than awesome. So I did kind of I was planning on touching on some of the points and then my arguments about what I would do if I was the God King of Calgary. And then another debate came out, and I'm not going to watch that one. I found that the watching of those debates was kind of just boring content because there was so much blah. Oh, I didn't. I thought I had the link to that in my little notes here, but I don't. Anyways, there was a new debate that came about, and it was the Chamber of Commerce. And there's so I figured I'd touch on what was talked about, and without watching the video, because again, real snooze fest. And then talk about what I think the problems are and what I think are the solutions. And they'll be sickening lefty solutions because I'm a filthy socialist. Hi, Nancy YYC. I see you lurking there. Lurking like you do. So first and foremost, watching both of those debates was actually, was quite interesting. They basically took the top 5 candidates out of a pool of like 6 million. I don't know. It's like 3 times the population of Calgary are running. We don't even have like the gumption to prevent white supremacists from like running. That was a thing that we allowed to happen. And actually, to be fair, Larry Heather has run a bunch of times. So, we always have a slew of white supremacy choices. What we're missing really is like a good, solid progressive voice. Frankly, I'm really bummed out that I'm going to wind up voting for Jody Gondak, even though Jody Gondak really doesn't match my feelings and beliefs. Oh, by the way, popped into my head. Apparently Alberta Proud is doing a politics, like what political party is right for you. Do not do this. Alberta Proud is a white supremacist talking points meme page, essentially. They learned from Britain Pride or whatever, Britain Proud or whatever it was, like the original one of these accounts, and they're all sort of tied to the far right. And why would you give them your name, your address, your phone number, whatever other details they want, plus your political views? I feel like that might be a poor choice. So don't do that. Anyways, Jody Gondak is the person I'm going to wind up voting for. I'm not pleased about this, but Jody Gondak represents the most likely winner, who is not named Jeremy Farkas. Jeremy Farkas, I think, is very awful. He's one of these people, he's like a bad spin doctor. So, for example, he kept saying in both of these debates, he's like, I'm the only person on this stage who voted against defunding the police. When in fact, what the vote was the Calgary police, in the height of the whole defund, when that was part of the regular discourse, the Calgary police came back with a new budget and said, like, we have chopped $8 million from our budget that we would like to use to establish connections and relationships and things with alternative agencies. And that $8 million is a drop in a leaky bucket, but I am 100% on board with that. Not only that, it was their fucking budget. So they went to the city with this budget, and the city was like, yeah, fuck, that's awesome. You guys are doing good work. This is a smart idea. And Jeremy Farkas went, no! I'm not for defunding the police. This is not defunding the police. Like, their fucking budget. Hang on, let's just take a quick gander if we can find what the Calgary police budget was. I guarantee you, less than the budget for Calgary police budget 2021. Less than New York. I'm willing to go on a limb there and say less than New York. Okay, so what do we got? Does it actually say? Oh, I've got to open up their PDF. I hope it's not a virus. And can I just fucking open it in? Oh, I can. Cool. Okay, cool. So here's our RoboCops, and what are they? Annual policing plan, quarterly report. This is a quarterly report. I just want to know what their fucking budget was, because I'm not going to go through this whole thing. But yay, we're killing less people, unless it's beating the crap out of Taylor McNally. In which case, yay, we're defending the public. Yeah, well, I can't seem to find what I'm looking for, but suffice to say, they have some money. They have a couple dollars that they can work with, And them not having those couple dollars, probably not a big fucking threat to democracy. Farkas, very, very adamant that this was communism. We were doing a communism, and we had to goddamn well not. It didn't matter because ultimately our provincial government, which if you're watching from the United States, is like a state government, basically said, hey, now, we're the ones that set your budget, and if you don't want to use it all, well, we'll just take that money back and get hookers and blow. So that didn't end up changing anything. But Farkas, I'm the only one who voted against defunding the police. Fuck off, dude. He has a whole bunch of disingenuous lies. And he keeps talking about like he's got this I think it's a 10-point economic recovery plan, and he very proudly in both debates has mentioned that it was it's been vetted and approved by Jack Mintz, great economist Jack Mintz. And I was like, well, who the fuck is Jack Mintz? Because I don't know who Jack Mintz is. So I went looking, and I'll show you the answer. Again, if you're a Canadian, you probably will know some of this. So if I go Jack Mintz, economist, Dr. Jack Mintz, the President's Fellow. Oh, let's just pop open his. Fraser Institute. Is that Jack Mintz? Yes, it is. Jack Mintz works for the Fraser Institute. Can I find a decent... I would have thought he'd have a wiki page. Well, we'll just go to his page on the Fraser Institute. So, doesn't at all look like he has a collection of small shoes. Definitely not. And yeah, the President's Fellow of the School of Public Policy at the University of Calgary after serving as the Palmer Chair and founding director. He also serves on the boards of Imperial Oil Limited and Morneau Chappelle as the National Policy Advisor for Ernst & Young. Since October 2018, he's become a senior fellow, Massey College in Toronto, held the position of Professor of Business Economics at the Rotman School of Business, chaired the federal government's Technical Committee on Business Taxation in 96 and 97, consulted with the World Bank, that group of fantastic, caring souls, member of the Order of Canada. That's always a red flag. When you're an Order of Canada, you've probably done horrible things, probably to women or children. And it's not saying it here, but yeah, he works with the Fraser Institute, which is a ghastly organization. Am I wrong about this? Yeah, that was his Fraser Institute page that I was just on. It says he's a filmmaker. Let's find out more. I want to know what did he make The Wizard of Oz? I don't think he did. That feels unlikely. Who the fuck is learn more? Why can't I click on things, Google, you piece of... Anyways, fuck it. Apparently, not only did he invent economics, but he also made a film called Boys Town, which is funny to me because Boys Town was the name of a very, very long-lived gay bar here in Calgary. And I feel like they probably didn't have a lot in common with Jack Mintz. So that's giggly to me. Anyways, so both of the debates in varying degrees came down to conversations about a couple of key points. Hey, I got a friend request from a clearly obvious sex bot. Oops, I deleted it. And, I got another friend request from another... Is this a sex bot? Let's find out. Can you see? Yep, sex bot. And the only post is, hello, honey, I can't post my nude videos, photos on Facebook. Wow! I have breasts with reddish nipples and a big butt. Look here! And there's a link which, oh shit, I didn't click on because I'm not a fucking idiot. Yeah. Anyways, that's a thing. That's the world we live in now. I get sex bot fucking ads for Facebook friends probably 15 to 20 times a day, which is weird because I have yet to buy any Russian sex wives or anything like that. I don't understand the correlation, but anyways, I get them. Anyways, back to the debate. So they talked about sort of in both debates in varying ways. They talked about how scary downtown is, which is kind of valid. I'm not going to say it's not. They talked about arts funding, and they talked about how to make downtown great from a financial and economic perspective right now. And they talked a lot about property taxes. They're all kind of correlated. So here's the picture of things. Yeah, our downtown can be kind of scary. Why, just last night, or no, the night before, someone went on a machete binge and just was macheteing 4 people, and has been arrested and all this kind of shit. But clearly that's not a good look for the city. Machete binges are kind of sus. So that's a thing. Then there's the whole question of arts funding. For whatever reason, Calgary pretends like it has an artistic scene. We have artists that live in Calgary. We just don't support them unless they play for the Philharmonic or dance the ballet or are exceptionally well known. Like, we don't give fuck number one about our underground art world. And I'm not just speaking begrudged as a punk rocker who, surprise, surprise, the city doesn't want to pay for punk rock bands to make music. Big gasp. But I mean, we have good, straight up rock and roll bands, rockabilly bands, roots bands, that totally could be on that national stage and just aren't because they have no support here. That's a thing. It's a thing that bugs me. But anyways, there is a recognizing that arts funding is important, venues are important, which is hilarious when they say that, because I don't know how many venues closed, not even COVID, but there was a week where 3 venues all closed down in the same week, all for different reasons. Only one of them was the direct responsibility of the city being shitty to venues, but the city of Calgary, and not the living in the city. But yeah, there's a lot of talk about the need for additional funding for the arts, the need for support for the arts. We've historically failed miserably at this. We shared the role of Canada's number one art place a few years back, and those of us in that community were like, wait, what? Because it was just the shit of horses that they would do that. But I'm glad they're talking about it. I hope that they actually plan on doing stuff. And then they talked about encouraging business to come downtown, and they talked about property taxes. Property taxes are a contentious issue because residential tax for property tax is less than the tax for commercial space. And commercial space is also largely empty because turns out there was a recession even before COVID, and we're a town that's built on oil, and oil has been doing historically shit. So remember that time when oil, Alberta oil, was in the negative for dollars on the not stock exchange, but you know what I mean, the commodities market. Not a good thing to have built, your whole economy around. So we were in a recession, possibly even one could argue we were skating towards a depression, and then COVID struck and actually saved our asses. Contrary to what people will tell you, the lockdowns and CERB and all of that kept our economy stable through a very dark time, and we didn't notice the impact of the negative $10 barrel of oil. That's actually, it was a fluke, but flukes count. So that's real. So these were the sort of talking points they were talking about. And I personally believe the solution is very different than what they were talking about. So when it came to scary homeless people, Farkas wants to reestablish a cop shop downtown, where according to him, the only major center in the whole wide fucking world that doesn't have a cop shop right in the heart of downtown. Cool. I hope that's true. But there was crime downtown when there was a cop shop there. I'm young enough to remember the cop shop when it was on in the building where the public library is, which was right across the street from what was like where the Palomino is now, but where at the time it was the Center Street C train station. And literally, like, the easiest place to score sketchy as fuck drugs. You just walk off the C train and there'd be like 30 people going, hash, hash, weed, whatever. It was, and like right across the street from the cop shop, nobody cares because the cops are smart enough to know that there are ways to go about their job, and going, you know, crossing the street every 20 minutes and busting some kid is just not the answer. That's evidence, though, that just putting a cop shop somewhere ain't gonna solve the fucking problem. In fact, there's studies apparently that show that having a cop shop in the downtown core actually makes for less prevalence of police officers in the downtown core. I don't know why, but I heard it, and it must be a true thing because it was something somebody said once. Additionally, one of the other again conservative leaning people, if I remember correctly, was like, you know what we need? We need a transit cop on every single train car because, you know, C trains are scary. But to me, all of these things are tied together. Like I was saying, what it boils down to is we have a large population of unhoused people. We have a large population of people who are not mentally well, and there is some overlap, but those are not the same group. I want to make that very clear. We have people who are not mentally well and are not receiving appropriate treatment. Yes, COVID has made all of that worse. Plus, of course, we have poverty and drug addiction and all the other things that every other big town has. COVID made these things worse, but they were not good before. The reason they're not good isn't because of property taxes. It isn't because of a lack of a cop shop downtown. The problem is that people are hurting. And we've basically gutted every single industry around supporting them. So starting in the 80s with King Ralph Klein, the Alberta premier who like fucked everything up intentionally, in the desire to want to privatize things like public health, they cut funding for like fuck off everything. And when you cut funding for fuck off everything, you wind up with a system or a series of systems that aren't meeting needs. And when you're talking about things like social services and mental health, you wind up with people who fall between the cracks, as they like to say, and wind up in bad positions. They wind up either, maybe they're able to maintain their lives-ish, but they're, having problems with drugs, or they're, maybe they lose a job and wind up on the street and there's no support to get them off the street, and the horror of life on the street pushes them towards drugs. There's a million problems, and our one solution is call the police, because that's the only agency that we have left in that area. That's not entirely true, but it's primarily true. So when you rely on the police, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. When you're a cop, everyone looks like a criminal. And so you have someone who is mentally unwell, who is spiraling out of control because they have not been given the appropriate access to necessary medical treatment, for example. And that person is in the middle of a downward spiral that is going very poorly. When you're a cop, yeah, that looks like a criminal. When you're a mental health worker, that looks very different. And you have a very different set of tricks and tips to deal with that. And this is the world. But we only have cops now. So everyone's a criminal. And so we go, wow, look at all the criminals. Probably need more cops. When in fact, what the problem is we're addressing this after the fact. If that person had access to proper mental health care or social services, or had been treated with enough dignity that they were, not hurting anywhere near as bad, the chances are their outcome would not have ever come near that downward spiral. right? They'd have just got through, and we'd have had systems to help them get through. Without those, nothing stops the downward spiral, and it ends in a bad moment where cops look and see a criminal. This was the whole point of the police saying they wanted to have these community resources available and to foster relationships with other groups, other agencies. They've done some cool things. Again, I hate cops, but they did, like, I knew a woman who was working with the cops, and her job, she was a psych nurse, and her job was basically go with these two cops to places like, you know, the river, and see the people who were, you know, sleeping rough, and you know, offer them you know, medications that they, like, you know, because these were people, you know, the regular people that she knew, you know, offer them you know, to help them with their mental health drugs, offer to, you know, show them, you know, what services are available that they might need in that particular moment, all this kind of stuff, and act as a mental health nurse out in the wild world. That was, if I'm not mistaken, that was actually, you know, created by the police as a program specifically to do that kind of ahead of the scenes outreach. That's where you get your biggest bang for your buck. When you're talking social spending, you do get value out of funding your police, right? Especially if you fund them at exclusion of everything else, because again, if everybody's a criminal, you need more cops to put them in jail. But if you can get to people and help them before that downward spiral results in what appears to a cop to be criminal behavior, that's a different story. Completely different story. So what would I do? How would I solve the world's problems? Well, we have the scary downtown, and we have the need for all of this empty space that we have downtown to get full. I have an idea, and it's a crazy wackadoo one. How about we use some of that space and we house people? Not only do we house them, but we make, you know, so let's just say we buy a residential building. And by buy, I mean repatriate from some shit-ass landlord who doesn't deserve our fucking time. So we repatriate a big building, and we convert it into residential space. And we make it available for people who are unhoused. And we include in that residential space, like, on-site access to services directly intended to improve their quality of life. We're not dealing with some of those same problems anymore. You know, if you have things like a safe consumption site on premises, and you have, you know, one of the big complaints about public housing is always, you know, oh, they're gonna just ruin it and treat it badly. Fine. Then you have, you know, people who work in there whose job it is to keep the place clean and make sure that, you know, that it's not falling into disrepair. Fine. All of this, you know, who's gonna pay for it? Well, honestly, it'll pay for itself. Because as downtown is less ooky pooky scary, because these people are being housed and they're having access to services that will benefit them and remove or reduce the likelihood of their having actual problems, then all of a sudden, problems go down. And when problems go down, it becomes more an interesting environment for people to live, thrive, and survive. Everyone's reaction when you say this radical plan of mine to take a building and make it freely available to people who can't afford it otherwise, they go, oh my God, like, you're creating a ghetto system. Well, only if you let it get that way. A lot of places have government subsidized housing that isn't shit. And it doesn't have to be shit. If you make a commitment, and it's a commitment based around, like, ensuring that the people who live in these places have dignity in their surroundings and have access to services to improve their lives, it won't be a big scary downtown scary ghetto scary. It'll just be a place where there's people who are doing better, and these people are you know, making changes in their lives. And isn't that fucking brilliant? And I'm 100% for it. I think that's a fucking rad idea. That means that all of a sudden downtown is less scary. downtown is less dangerous for a business to be open and operating. Because you're not going to get rid of scary downtown people by just pretending like they're not real. You're not going to get rid of them by arresting them, because they're probably not all guilty of life sentence crimes. So you're going to have a revolving door of people who can't get out of that situation. The only way forward is through. And we have to help people to get them the services and the supports that they need in order to not make all the bad choices that result in the downtown being scary. How do we deal with property taxes? Well, it's very similar. First and foremost, I say we fucking repatriate a bunch of these empty buildings. They're not doing any good for anyone, and the people who are running them are shitheels. Let them work for a fucking living. So we repatriate. I'm not saying all, but we choose a handful of these buildings. We make some for homeless people. We make some for low-income people. We make some for people that are making decent money. Right now, rental here is ridiculous. Part of the reason rental here is ridiculous is because the property tax and the cost of property, the valuation of property, is absolutely obscene. So people, you need to smoke? Okay. Sorry, just making sure that everyone's got nicotine. I love you. He's got the sheepish look on his face, like, I'm sorry, Dad. Hey, man. I don't like the fact that they smoke, but they smoke. Anyways, the empty space is literally an affront to everything that we should be standing for. Empty spaces is using just pure economic terms, there's a word called opportunity cost. And I'll give you an example. Your office that you work in, let's just say you work in a regular office or restaurant or whatever. You are open a certain number of hours every day where there is work happening. You can be closed the other hours of the day. Where I work, we're open 9 to 5. And no, I'm not going to say that after people finish work, load homeless people into their offices. That's just silly. But you have this opportunity cost. That is the cost of not using a resource. So when my company closes for the night and everybody goes home, that space is empty. Now, there's things you can do to somewhat mitigate that, in that, maybe you turn the lights off, blah, 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 blah. But you could make more money reusing this space, if that's possible. Now, in the case of most businesses, it ain't possible. But when you have a resource and it's not being utilized, it is a waste and a drain. And most of our downtown core right now is a waste and a drain. And companies are that own these properties are scrambling to find ways to get new tenants and screw over tenants and stuff. The city has, by the way, the thing that I'm suggesting, I did not know until I watched these debates. The city actually put, I think it was like $45 million into doing exactly what I'm talking about, except not to the direction that I'm talking about. They were talking about using $45 million of budget to purchase some of the downtown space that is empty and find new uses for it, right? Because that makes sense. If you have an empty space, you're not making any money on it. It's a bad investment. I'm looking at you, owners of the Days Inn. But yeah, so you have this problem in Calgary of our property values. And how are we addressing it? We're not. We're allowing developers to just keep building farther and farther out. And I talk about all this shit all the time, so this should come as no surprise to anyone. When you build out, you suddenly have more of a pool of property tax coming in, but it's not a significant amount more. And your infrastructure costs in having these new communities are extremely high. So you have to run sewer, you have to run public transit, you have to have schools, you have to blah, 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 all kinds of stuff. And that all costs money. And so you divert money from the infrastructure of the main downtown area, and you divert it to the residential areas that you're building out to, and to maintaining the more and more that you have to maintain. So our costs consistently go up dramatically, and we can't get the revenue out of downtown. One of the questions that was asked in the Arts Commons debate was, should we just stop investing in downtown? We know it's not going to bring the big dollars. Shouldn't we just allow the city to rot from the inside, and won't that solve everything? To which I thought, no, I don't think that's a solution to fucking anything. I'm pretty sure that's the worst answer to the problem. The best answer to the problem is actually focus on your downtown. Focus on making it safer. Focus on making it accessible. Focus on making sure that people want to sometimes go there. Because the reality is, our downtown, after 5 p.m., it's pretty empty. There are pockets where there's bars that are successful and stuff, and that's fine. Yay, there's still drinking, there's still whatever. But for the most part, everybody leaves. Young people, as the mayoral candidates all wanted to call them, young people want to live and work downtown, but they don't want to live and work in our downtown because it's scary and all that shit. And there's not a lot of opportunity, and there's not a lot of this, that, and the other thing. The truth is that these GD millennials, just kidding, are changing the way that we do things. And it's not just millennials. It's actually the whole concept of the creative class and just the evolution of how we work in big cities. We're not interested in doing a lot of the stuff that historically has been, the direction people go in. And that's it's going to have really interesting effects long term. But how do you make downtown great again, as a jokey jokerson? You make it so that people want to be there, which means you cut out the amount of bad that is happening, and you don't do that by bringing more cops. You do that by fixing the people who are in the shitty spot, and you bring business and also fun, things like the arts, which I'm all for funding, right? So, and then someone surely will end up saying, who's going to pay for it all, Jim, you filthy socialist? Who will pay for it all? To which I tell you, fuck, that's what the whole point of this is. It's not about money. Money is bullshit. And we can pay for it by better utilizing the space that we have. Instead of stretching ourselves ever thinner, building out, we actually do better if we don't do that. So let's just stop. I love what Pittsburgh did. They drew a line on the map and said, Pittsburgh can't get bigger than this. You want to develop, you're going up. That was huge for them. And it's a absolute change in perspective that we need to do here, because we're literally just living the urban sprawl dream, and there's no reason for it. Not every single person needs to have a massive house. Not every single person needs to have a massive yard. Personally, I'm in a house that would be too big for just me. I have 2 kids that live with me. Kind of makes sense. I also use my basement for the jam space for 2 and possibly a 3rd band. Therefore are I'm not paying extra money every month for jam space. So my whole house is utilized, except for my shitty ass front lawn, which is gross and full of meth heads regularly. So, yay, there's that. But not everybody needs this. A lot of people are looking at condos. A lot of people are looking at apartments, and a lot of people should be fucking looking at these things that aren't. They're looking for buying a house because that's what we always think is the thing you do. You buy a fucking house. You're going to have kids. You need to have a house with 76 extra bedrooms in case your kids, you have a bunch of kids, and then their friends are going to want to sleep over, and then their friend, and you got to have a home office, and you got to have, definitely need a workout room. And everybody's building the perfect life out of the house. Fuck that. If I was the God King of the world, one of those buildings that I purchase, I would turn into nothing but fucking jam space. And it would be essentially like next to nothing to utilize it. And there'd be lockers on site that are controlled with cameras so that bands can put their shit, lock it away at the end of the night or whatever. Or you rent out specifically to a band, as many places do. And you know what? Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? People can leave their gear there. It's safe. It's secure. They can practice whenever the fuck they want to, provided the downtown's not flooded. And no one's any the wiser. That's a support for local music. I would do the same thing for the record with art, and it wouldn't be like, oh my God, you got paint on the wall, therefore I'm gonna sue the shit out of you. It would just be like, okay, let's take some of the space that's empty and let's use it for the things that are actually going to make our lives better. So that if I wanted to live in a little 1-bedroom apartment when my kids move out, which is very, very likely that that's all the space I will need, I should have access to a decent jam space. There's jam spaces in the city. We used to use one for Bodies of Everest. It was far, far away, and we couldn't afford it. We were splitting it with another band, and the cost was just unreal. And then I was like, we can use my basement for free, and that just made more sense. Anyways, neither here nor there. Yeah, you want to make the city better. Stop fucking building out. Start focusing on the problems in the core of the city and fixing those problems or doing what you can to improve upon them. That is the thing that will make the scary homeless people less scary. That is the thing that will make the cool young hipsters want to be downtown. That is the thing that will ultimately attract business, which revitalizes the area with business taxes. And all along the way, things just get better. That's what I would do if I was the God King. All right, this is a good time for me to take a pause. I'm going to go for roughly 7-minute sneak away break. If you're new to the stream and you're following or seeing for the first time, please feel free to throw a follow up there. I always enjoy that. I'm a little streamer. I don't have the big numbers. I don't make money on this. I shouldn't ever make money on this. This is not my career. I do this because I enjoy foaming at the mouth about leftist things. And I have a day job that more than covers my costs. And so, never feel like you have to donate money to me. So if, you can't sub to me because I'm not big enough, but if I ever get big enough, don't fucking sub to me. Don't give Bezos money when you're giving me money. If you want to give me money, there will be things that we can do. I actually have a whole thing that I've implemented, and I'm not even doing it because it's fun. I decided I'll explain this. I was coming up with this whole thing where I was like, what if I ever do become large enough that people are sending money, and I don't feel cool with the idea of them sending money to Jeff Bezos because fuck Jeff Bezos. In fact, fuck him hard. But if that ever happens, what do I do? And I was like, well, I'll have a different thing. And I came up with the humiliation ticker, which I'll show you now. And I'm just gonna do whatever I do today. Don't feel like there's a thing that needs to happen here. But my original thinking was okay, well, I'll do e-transfers. So there's streamlabs.com/biguglyjim, and then there's bigjimyammers@gmail.com. And I have to pause so that I can give my other child a cigarette because why not? There you go. Anyways, and I was like, people can use those to donate to me or to whatever. And if I get for free, I'll always do the good karaoke. For $10, I'll do the bad karaoke. For $20, I'll do karaoke where the chat gets to pick what I sing. $35, I'll do trumpetoke where I play my trumpet along with something the chat chooses at the last minute. And $50 hell to pay. I was like, yay, that's a good thing. The reality is that most of the time people don't send me money, and that is perfectly all right. So I'm just going to, at the end of this, I'm just going to humiliate myself for free because that's how I do. Anyways, long story short, going to take a quick break, and I will be back. When I get back, we will talk about, not about Jack Mitz, where's my thing? We'll talk about some other stuff. I want to talk about public ownership, and I want to talk about intersectionality because people seem to get squirkly about that. So I'm going to put on some shitty background music that I made, and it is shitty. And then I'll be right back. So here's the shitty music. And it keeps doing this. I don't know why the fuck it keeps having these little hiccups, but it's doing the hiccups thing. So here's this. And I'll mute my mic, and I'll be back in just a couple minutes. Okay, back. Music stopped. What the fuck else do I need to do? Oh, I need to get rid of the thing on my face. That's right. And there's the thing magically wiped away. All right, I have returned. And interestingly enough, while I was out, I got another friend request. This time it's from Sophie Blücher. And Sophie is a nice picture of Sophie. Definitely not fake. And along with the picture is the words, "Hi everyone, I'm from Canada, heart heart. I am starting a new adult dating group on WhatsApp. There are many teenage girls who need hypersex. You can join here without spending money. You can have S*X, because hypersex is, you know, that's a thing. But S*X, with your woman type, are you? You can have sex with your woman type, are you? I think that's meant as two statements. You can have sex with your woman type. Are you? Oh, you know what? There's just a bad comma. It's are you, or no, bad period. It's are you, and then period, and then it says, looking for a partner. Are you interested? Find your satisfaction. Happy face, squirt. Click here, big-eyed hearts, blowing kiss, finger, and a suspicious link. I'm gonna not friend you. That was the right choice. Definitely the right choice. All right. Fucking sex bots. All right, let's talk about public ownership. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go like this, because I should get better at doing all this, but you know what? That ain't happening today. Why is public ownership? Ooh, ownership. Ugh. Bad. Why is public ownership bad? A good question, Jim. I'm glad you asked me. All right. So this kind of relates to what I was talking about before. Public ownership, public services, and versus private ownership. And as a socialist, I have a slant on this, obviously. I do believe that it's important that we have public ownership of certain things. Universal healthcare is a fine example of where it makes sense for us to have publicly owned services and not run them like a business. That is like the number one fuckery that the conservatives like to pull is, you know, it's not profitable. Well, it isn't meant to be profitable. It's meant to be a public service. You fucking goons. But then there's the argument that a private system would just be better. It would just naturally be better. Hey, you know what I'm going to do? Nancy, I think you're still on. I'm going to make you a mod. If I can. I don't even know. I'm using Chatterino now, and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Nancy _YYC. Yeah, I made you a mod. You're now a mod. If anyone says any stupid shit, which never happens, but if anyone says any stupid shit, you can delete them. Oh, and that reminds me, I have to have ready a thing that I don't have ready, and that is my follower remover, because we live in a world where people think that hate swarms are like super cool. So now, if there was a hate swarm, I could deal with that. But anyways, that's not about public ownership. Hate swarms are bad for very different reasons. Anyways, what conservatives do is they erode public services. And they do this quite intentionally with the intention of making them look bad. When you have a public system. When you have a private system, they take a different approach. Pardon me, hiccup. They take a different approach. When you have a public system like the public healthcare system we have here in beautiful Canada, yes, you are modular now. Rockin'. Hey, Nancy, are you coming to the gig tonight? I hope you are, because I enjoy you, and I would love to have you hear Bodies of Everest. Anyways, the way that they go about it is they take a public system like healthcare, and they go, you know what? There's a lot of administrative waste. And they just cut the budget. And they cut it intentionally knowing that they're cutting too deep. And then they go, see, the system is failing. And they keep doing that until enough people go, yeah, man, the system's failing. And then they start in on like, you know what we need is a private system. Private system would be so much more stable. Businesses know how to run. Government shouldn't be in the business of providing health care. What does the government know about keeping people alive? We're the government. Our job is to send people to war to die. Let's just privatize. And that's shitty, because the reality is, if you look at any public healthcare system versus any private healthcare system, it's nice. Oh, I'm looking forward to finally seeing you in the crowd for my prog band. It's sort of like a weird prog/stoner thing. So I think you'll enjoy. I hope so. If you don't, well, then you can just punch me in the eye afterwards. Yeah. So we chip away at the systems, and then we go look at the systems and how they're not functioning. We should privatize, and people are not smart enough to figure that one out. And then they go, yeah, no doubt, that's a thing. So here in beautiful Calgary, we used to have a healthcare system, and it was a good healthcare system. We still have a healthcare system. It's just not as healthy as it once was, and that's because we elected King Ralphus, the Lord of all cutters, to slash budgets and get rid of all that administrative waste. And they also, it's funny because they always seem to focus on the administrative waste around systems like healthcare and education, and never around the administrative waste in areas like gaming and liquor, lotto, the cash cows. We would never privatize those. Those are money, baby. The reality is that this is just, it's an agenda. It's an intent, because the people who are in power, they don't want to spend money to have public services, because public services cost money, and they hate that. So they just don't. They just cut. And our city went from having a large number of hospitals to having a small number of hospitals. A couple weeks ago, I actually played the video of them blowing up the general hospital, which has now been replaced by the Shelton Shamir Clinic, but that was years in the making. Barely survived Ralph's cuts. Staff morale never recovered. Absolutely. And staff morale has, like, every time, and I'm speaking for nurses and doctors and stuff, so and I'm not one of those things, but what I see is that every time people start to feel a little bit okay and a little bit confident in their jobs in the public health sphere, some fucking conservative politician is like, look at all the waste. That one nurse isn't running to a person who's on fire right now, and therefore we should probably think about trimming budgets. Most recently they were like, do we even need people to, do maintenance work? Like, how many plumbings do we have in a hospital? That's just silly. The people they were talking about are the people who, like, change diapers and, mop up the vomit on the ground. Like, those are things that happen a lot more regularly. And the government was all set to just, like, completely privatize that and just be dicks about it. And they were, right before the pandemic, they were like, hey, nurses, fuck you. We're going to take all your money and you're going to just be okay with it. And the nurses were like, oh no, it turns out we're not. And then there was a pandemic, and then everyone was like, hey, nurses, we really love you. And then they were like, hey, nurses, we really love you, but we're probably not going to fix the pay thing. Probably not going to do that. Now it's different. Now things are definitely different. We go to hospitals and go, hey, nurses, you're part of an evil corporate cabal of globalists who want to make everyone get immunized with vaccines, and therefore you're the worst and we hate you. Because that's awesome. But yeah, Ralph Klein's cuts were fucking legendary, and he cut the shit out of public education. He cut the shit out of post-secondary education. He cut the shit out of mental health spending, general health spending. Like, literally everything you could cut on a budget, he cut. And I've already talked at great length about King Ralph and what a piece of giant shit he is. But the whole thing is, it was done specifically to weaken those systems, to decrease the morale of the staff in those systems, and ultimately to make them appealing for people to outsource, to privatize. And that is the end game. And it's not out of some sense of like this is the right thing to do. It's out of a sense of the business mind of healthcare doesn't make you money. Healthcare is a cost. And if you think of the healthcare industry as an industry, then it's a shitty industry. But if you think of the healthcare system as a service, then it's an amazing thing that improves the quality of life of everybody living in the area and makes for jobs, makes for stability, makes for all kinds of positive, net positive in society. And that ain't conservative values. Conservative values are really big on transparency and budgets that balance and all of these things. And those, don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of just recklessly spending money. I made an offhand comment about like, well, who will pay for it? Money's not real. Money's not real, but we live with the consequences of the imaginary money that we have created. I totally get that. I'm not pretending like that's not a thing. But having that service is important. Spending money on that service is important, so you make it happen. You know, they often go, oh yeah, you know, think about it like if you were a family balancing your budget. You know, you run out of money, you just stop spending. First off, no, not in a world with credit. And second, that's not how the government should or could work. The way that things are at that level is completely different. So you have responsibilities to your elected, your electorate and to the citizens of the town and all of that shit that you have to meet. And if the money isn't there, you fucking make it happen anyways. Maybe it's not time to spend millions of dollars on public art, for example, which again, I think is a net positive. But let's say it's not the time to spend money on public art. Fine, but there's still like, if you have to go into debt to pay for healthcare, you go into fucking debt to pay for healthcare. Why? Because it doesn't matter. And conservatives will go, oh, it does matter, the deficit and payments and fuck that. Money is bullshit. None of it matters. It's imaginary. And so we're hamstrung by having elected leaders who are like, hey, you know what's awesome? Balanced budgets. Even though it doesn't mean anything, it means that their conservative supporters will go, look, a balanced budget, you did a good thing. And so that's the whole motivation. Everything we're doing right now is short-sighted. When it comes to politics, we're looking at the next electoral cycle. When it comes to business, we're looking at the next quarter. Everything is short-sighted. And that's why we're not fixing big systemic problems. You got to hand it, whether you like Biden or not, and I can't say I'm a big fan, but you got to hand it to the Dems and the Republicans for that fucking infrastructure bill and all of the related stuff that's been going on lately. That is actually a lot more forward thinking than I'm used to from any politician or business person. And you want to see like what a proper forward thinking system looks like? Look at the Green New Deal. You don't have to like it. You don't have to believe the climate change is real, although you probably should, because it fucking is. But that's a jobs bill. That's an economic foundation that is looking at long-term adaptation of the economy to better sustain the realities of what the future holds. That's what governments should be doing, but it costs a lot of money up front, and it's not doing a lot of the things that we're good at doing, like giving money to oil companies, so we balk at it. When housekeeping was outsourced, the level of cleanliness in our hospital was greatly reduced. And here's the thing about cleanliness in a hospital. I know this is going to seem like a radical take, but dirty hospitals aren't good. I know. Communist talk. But it's true. It turns out that for people who want to argue this point, there's this thing, and it's new. It's called germ theory, and it's like literally brand new. But it turns out some studies show that when you have a dirty environment, there are things like bacteria, which is a Latin word for really tiny evil motherfucker, that these little tiny evil motherfuckers can thrive, and they can make people sick. An example of this is a little thing called MRSA. And a lot of people use the term MRSA without understanding it. They just think of it as the thing that, you go to the hospital with a cold and suddenly you have MRSA and you're dying. MRSA is, what is it? Oh, for fuck's sake. I know what it means and I can't think of it. So I'm just going to quickly Google because I'm a fucking old man brain. I'm old. Where's my Google tab? There it is. All right. So MRSA, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. You know what? I didn't know I didn't know what the A stood for. That's kind of funny. So I thought I was smarter than I am. But yeah, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. And I might be saying that wrong because ich bin ein Latiner. But essentially, methicillin is, the most effective method for treating Staphylococcus. So staph infections, you hear about people getting staph infections. The reality of, and I had this conversation with one of my children this week. She is sort of going down the anti-vax road, and it's really fucking frustrating. And if you're watching, Emma, don't do that shit. But so she had been prescribed some antibiotics, and she's like, but I feel fine, so I'm just gonna stop taking them maybe. And I was like, fucking don't. This is why we have MRSA, because MRSA came about because people would take some of their medication and beat 8 shades of shit out of the staff, and the staff would be dead. But sometimes it'd be like a little bit of staff alive because they were resistant to methicillin. But in general, if you beat the shit out of it enough, they'll die. But then you stop taking the methicillin, and they can continue to reproduce and do well. And so the ones that are reproducing are the ones that were best able to survive methicillin, and you wind up with what they called superbugs. That was a thing. Before superfoods, it was superbugs. And before that, it was Superman, who is now gay. And I'll talk about that in a second because that shit's funny to fucking hell. Yeah, and misuse. Absolutely misuse. And the certainly the overuse, people giving prescriptions for antibiotics. Like, I don't know how many times I would go in with a cold and the doctor would be like, let me get you some antibiotics. Antibiotics don't fucking treat a cold, you dumb shit. You know what treats a cold? 3 days of having a runny nose. That's what treats a fucking cold. I will fight the cold affects people in their face. That's just a horseshit thing. But yeah, overprescription of antibiotics for reasons where there shouldn't have been antibiotics prescribed, 100%. And then people not taking all of their antibiotics when they had them created MRSA. And MRSA is a real problem, particularly in hospitals, because that's where staff can live and thrive. And I remember during H1N1, one of the things that was happening was people were going into hospital with H1N1 problems and contracting MRSA because of the strain on the system, and that was causing real serious problems and leading to a larger number of deaths than H1N1 would have normally had. So that's a whole thing. When we don't have clean hospital spaces, we're not effectively preventing things like MRSA, and MRSA is just one example. I actually saw a housekeeper wipe the toilet then the patient's table with the same rag. Oh, that's fucking filthy. Oh my God. And you get what you pay for, right? When you're outsourcing it and it's somebody who is like not invested in the team, they're working for some company and their job today is to go and clean toilets in a hospital and they're not fucking thrilled about it. They're not probably putting that extra little bit of thought into how do I do my job well. Those people who were working in the hospitals worked in the hospitals. They knew the hospital protocols. They cared about the hospital protocols. And they took pride in those hospital protocols. Even the same person who now works for giant shitball company that is probably underpaying them and under-delivering benefits and all the other shit, you don't put as good a job in. And it's not because people are shitty. It's because people are normal and human. And humans, when we're presented with a thing that we don't really want to do, we don't put our whole ass into it. We do a half-assed job. Many patients demand an antibiotic prescription when unwarranted and doctors comply. 100%. The lesson that we have yet to learn is that antibiotics don't solve a lot of problems. They solve certain problems, like staph infections. You know, another one is things, and again, I am no fucking doctor, so please don't consider anything I'm saying as accurate. But like, people have like pneumonia or bronchitis, and when those are bad, they absolutely have like hideously bad side effects, and you can wind up in hospital and all kinds of problems. But one thing I didn't realize is that you have both of those all the time. If I'm not mistaken, you basically, like, the bacteria and stuff that causes these diseases are in normal part of our bodies and they're in stasis. And then when they become no longer in balance, that's when we have problems, and shit gets potentially very ugly. I have never had like a bad pneumonia or bronchitis, but I know people who've been like in oxygen tents as a result. That shit sucks. I like tents. I just don't like oxygen tents. You know, call me quirky. Anyway, so again, but to the point, we chip away at systems. We make decisions that we know are going to negatively impact the quality of the system. And a good example of that would be this fucking conservative government going, yeah, you know what's awesome? Not paying people to do healthcare. Well, that's a keen fucking plan. And so, you know, like with the housekeeping staff, they knew that decision would result in a drop in quality. They knew that decision would potentially result in serious problems, but it was cheaper, and it gives them the ability to go, see, the system is so expensive. You know who should run this? Private people. There's never any problems in private doctor world. That's just never. And again, they did the same thing with public education. You know, K to 12 funding got cut so badly. And now people are like, you know, the schools are so bad. Why am I sending my kid to these schools when I could just like homeschool or private school or whatever? And all that does is, in the long term, erodes the system further. And then every time these little bad things happen, it leads to the next time in the conversation where the politicians are like, you know, what are we even doing running schools? What do we know about schools? We're the government. We shouldn't be telling you what to learn. We should be telling you, you know, that you have to pay taxes. And that's it. That's it. So why don't we just, like, stop having schools? All of these things erode our public safety net and erode our opportunities. I'm a big fan. A lot of people are talking about, you know, should school be even required and stuff. And like, there's the unschooling movement, and there's all this other kinds of shit, and the creepy Christian homeschoolers and all that shit. Fuck that. Here's the thing. School's job is to give you the foundations of an understanding of the world around you, right? When you learn social studies, what are you learning? You're not learning the Treaty of Versailles as an important aspect of modern life. What you're learning is some history. You're looking at social context of decisions. You're looking at how we interact as groups. We're looking at different ways that these things can be organized. You know, public versus private sector, public ownership and private ownership, totalitarian control, independence, liberty. All of these, you know, these are important fucking things for people to understand, and that's a good thing. English class, they're teaching you how to read, which is good. They're teaching you how to communicate, which is also good. And they're teaching you how to appreciate both of those things. So, poetry, for example. There's no business acumen that is benefited by being poetic. Only an idiot would think that poetry shouldn't be a thing that we teach, because it actually is an important thing to learn to effectively communicate our emotions and our thoughts through words. This is good. It's good, right? But we're not, you know, poetry. That's just for the gay kids, right? Fuck that. When we teach math, we're not teaching people how to be mathematicians. We're teaching them how to think logically and to do abstract problem solving. When we teach science, we're teaching people their place in the known universe and how to effectively question all of the things around them. And I don't mean going to YouTube and typing in, "Is COVID a fake?" Because no. But all of these things are vital to the essentially the beginning of a human being in the wild world. When I was in Taekwondo, I remember I was sparring against a black belt, and it was a black belt that I was just like, I was not a black belt, and I was beating 8 shades of shit out of this person in the spar. And I was talking to my teacher about it afterwards, and I was like, not that I'm a black belt or should be at that level, but I think of a black belt, and I think of better than that. And my teacher laughed and was like, you're not wrong. But the thing is that a black belt, your first level of your black belt is essentially like being a high school graduate, in that you have a core competency in a bunch of different areas that's a little bit better than if you were an eggplant. Now is when, as you progress as a black belt, is when you start to learn the things that will make you an exceptional kicker, striker, puncher, whatever the fuck, all of those things. High school gives you that foundation. It sucks because not everybody learns the same. It sucks because schools are generally terribly run, which isn't helped by the fucking cuts to budgets. But you know what? Like, I used to teach actually at a private post-secondary education institution. And I remember they made me a liaison for the weekend college program, which was a program in some bad shape. Essentially, they came up with the idea of weekend college. It was DeVry, and the DeVry in Calgary. When they brought in every other city, they brought in weekend college. It was like the number one fucking seller, because people were like, "Holy shit! I can go to school around my work schedule, and life will be all right." For whatever reason, in Calgary, not a big sell. No one with like really small class sizes, which means it's not financially a wise decision to continue to invest in it. And that led to a lot of really bad business-based decisions. Things like not having food services available on the weekends. Because why are we paying someone to be there when they've only got like a half-hour lunch break? Fuck it, like, I'm not going to do that. And then you have all of your students going, but I enjoy food. I would like to eat today. I'm here for fucking 9 hours, and I only get half an hour off, and there's not even food. Fucking perfect. And there were a bunch of things like that, a bunch of decisions that were made from a business perspective that failed in the human perspective. And I at one point, I actually wrote an email to the president of the company, and I was like, dude, I don't think I'm the guy you want for this job, because I hear your staff talk about the students, and this is why I'm saying this, is this relates to schools. I hear your staff talk about the students in the way that like the students are this annoying facet of their job that they have to deal with in order to get their, do their job and get paid. And I was like, that's a bullshit attitude. Your students are the whole reason you have a fucking job. Your students are why you're there. They are your product, and you want to have as good a product as possible. I'm not the right guy for this job because I don't fit your company wackadoodness. And the president was like, actually, that's why we want you in this job, because you are willing to say this doesn't make sense. Anyways, blah 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 blah. When it comes to public schools, I think the same problem exists. I think a lot of teachers, because of how frustrated they are and because of how tired they are and how regularly slapped around by the press they are, and certainly by their employers, the government, it's hard to be happy about doing your job. And when you come in and your job is to enrich the lives of young people, and those young people, you can look at them like they're your product, or you can look at them like they're that fucking pain in the ass that if these little fucking shits would just do better, my job would be easier. Both of those are actually valid. Only one of them is good. Solving that problem doesn't involve cuts to the program. It involves increasing spending. It involves listening to teachers or nurses or doctors or whomever you're talking about and supporting them in making their job environment better. And you get better outcomes. And how do better outcomes matter for healthcare? Well, a lot of people don't necessarily have to die. When we figured out this whole germ theory thing, all of a sudden people started dying less. That's a good thing. When we started doing, like having decent kid graduates from school, our economy improved. This is just facts. This is the way the world is. Turns out, the more money you spend early on, the less money you have to spend later on. And I look to no further than American schools and go, y'all are fucked. Yeah. So public ownership isn't bad. Public ownership is fucking awesome. As the kids would say, it's poggers. But it's never, if you look at it as a business that you're running, then it won't be profitable. There's no such thing as a profitable school where everyone can go. There's profitable schools, but they're not meant for everybody. They're meant for rich white people. Sorry, I got a little distracted. Another nicotine moment for children, because that's important. Gotta keep them started young. Get it in ya. Yeah. Anyways, public ownership is good. What else is I gonna chat about? I was gonna talk about intersectionality. I'm gonna talk about intersectionality, and I think that's almost hilarious because I'm a white male and I'm straight, born with the gender that I identify with. Probably the last person on earth who should be talking about intersectionality, because I kind of don't experience the problems with it. But I think it's an interesting. I had a realization this week, and I wanted to share these. So people get a little bunged up about intersectionality, and a lot of people say that like white people don't understand intersectionality, and I'm going to argue that. I'm going to argue that 100%. I'll tell you why. I think that we totally get intersectionality. We just don't like it, because right now the intersection that we like best is the corner of Honky Street and Middle Class Avenue, right? Where I probably live. I probably am not middle class, but on paper I'm middle class. And if eventually I stop having to pay all of the support payments and all the things, then I will actually probably be upper middle class, maybe even lower upper class, or who fucking knows. But certainly I can't say that I'm struggling. When brain just stopped. Children walking by. When we're talking about intersectionality, we get the idea of different groups having different perspectives. I'll give you the best example that I can think of is the Italians. So remember, they didn't used to be white. There was a time when they were not white, not like the good whites. They were swarthy. Terrible fucking attitude. Everyone's white as far as I'm concerned. Fuck it. That's not colorblindness. That's like, let's just all have good privilege. Obviously, we're not there. I'm kidding. But when we needed Italians to be white, suddenly they became white. Because whiteness is a bullshit imaginary thing. Like all of these things. Poor versus rich is ultimately imaginary in the sense that there's no intrinsic qualities of a person that make them poor or that make them rich. I'm a really smart motherfucker. I'm good at what I do. I work hard. I have been poor my adult life. Like I say, I probably won't be for forever, but that's not like if I work hard and pull myself up by my bootstraps. I don't mean that. I mean literally the job that I do at this point, the money that I get for that job is pretty good. And I don't see it because I am a single father and I pay a giant amount of support payments and yada, yada, yada. But there will come a time when that's no longer true, and I will have what is a really good job, and I won't know what to do with myself, which is probably a good problem to have. But the concept of intersectionality, we understand that there is a difference between feminism and black feminism, because there are different adjectives that can describe people and that affect them in different ways. So what is good for all women may not be good for all women. It may be good for a small subset of women. What is good for all women may not be enough for all women. These are things. So where intersectionality comes in is that idea that it's never about just the one adjective. There's always more to the conversation. And I think we get that. I think if you say white women, that's intersectionality. You may not recognize it like that, but you're talking about one adjective, whiteness, and another adjective, femininity, or however you want to consider. Yeah, because trans women are women, so fuck you. But if that's the easiest way to make it understood, then that's intersectionality. It is that the crossroads of honky and lady is a particular point, and what is good for white may not always be good for lady. And when we say things like, the ignorant comment is always like, oh, if only I was like a black lesbian disabled who has mental health problems, and like the bullshit Olympics of trying to find like the most marginalized person that you can be like, if only I was that person, I'd have all the luck in the world. No. And that's not the case, because those people, turns out, don't have a good fucking life, because all of those intersections that we're talking about, they're on, and you're intentionally looking for someone on the shit end of each of those intersections. So you find someone who has like the most shit end of the stick that you can have, and you're like, ugh, the system must be great for them. Is it? Did you ask them? Because I feel like you didn't. Intersectionality isn't something that we should be afraid of. Intersectionality is just a way of looking at any issue from a broader perspective. Second wave feminism was very much like white woman feminism. And there were, plenty of examples of black women and other women of color who were like, hey, we're with you. And the white women were like, that's cool. Can you just like head on to the back of the room there and like not color up our movement here? That happened. It was a thing. It's gross. Third wave feminism was about intersectionality. And that's where people get all fucking pissy about shrill feminists and like, all they want is like, the most marginalized. No, that's not what they're doing. They're just trying to give voice to a larger group than just white women. Turns out white women don't have it as good as white men, but have it better than black women, for example. These are just examples. And we also have to accept the fact that when we're talking about these things, these privileges, that they're not perfect. So as a white male, it does not mean that I have a college education and that I can afford a college education. Just as if you were a black male, doesn't mean that you can't afford a college education or whatever. It means that it's more likely that I have the things that will allow me to get a college education. It's more likely that I have all of the supports in place that I can take a step forward. And some of those are because of things like intergenerational wealth. I did not grow up in a rich family. We owned our house. My parents ended up going bankrupt, but we owned our house when I was a kid, so we were not renting, so we didn't move around a lot. That means that I had certain benefits. It doesn't mean that, I was rich because I was white. It means there were privileges that I encountered because of the intersections my parents were on, for want of a better term. But unisex toilets, happy Saturday, everyone. Oh, I am Canadian. You know what? I'm 100% down with unisex toilets. First and foremost, I don't want to see people's penises, so I'm not looking. So if the person who is, going to the bathroom next to me has a penis or has a not penis, all right, I don't fucking care. I'm probably not going to, touch it or pet it or stare at it. That's okay. And I would appreciate it if they didn't touch, pet, or stare mine. That's just how it goes. Second off, when I was bouncing, many times you see women go into the men's bathroom and you have to chase them out because it's not a particularly safe space for a woman. And usually I'm talking about the scenarios where this was like an accidental whoopsie doodle, like someone walks into the wrong room and they're like, and then you go in and you're like, I think you're coming with me or whatever. And that is definitely, like it was a brain thing that you're like, oh, that is a woman going, I'm assigning gender roles. I'm not saying that was good, but you see that situation, you go, hey, are you in the right spot? Because it can be an unsafe place for a woman to be in a men's bathroom. Likewise, a man walking in a woman's bathroom, again, assuming no malintent, just a guy walks in thinking it's the guy's washroom, most likely the women who are in that bathroom are probably not going to be comfortable. That's a thing. And it's because we have built up all of this stuff. We've built up this idea that we should, bathrooms are scary and dangerous. It used to be that, if you had the coloreds in your school, then the white girls could get gonorrhea from the toilets. That was an argument against opening up schools, right? Now we're in a different place. Unearned privilege doesn't mean you don't struggle in life. Exactly. And unrealized privilege, right? So I had privilege that, by virtue of my honkydom, that I was never able to realize, but that doesn't mean it wasn't more easy for me to have the thing that, were in question. It just means unearned privileges. First wave of feminists paved the way for me to grow up in the 70s, 80s, never thinking I was less of a human being because I was female, forever grateful. 100%. Don't get me wrong. I'm not slagging on the benefits of first and second wave feminism. I just think that it's important that we have the third wave of feminism and that we've got to a place where more voices can be heard. Originally, it was like, please just allow me to be a human being. And then it was like, allow me to be a human being with a little bit of fucking equality, please. And then now we're at, hey, how about all of us? And this is good. My progeny are they, them. I still struggle not to call them by their old pronouns. 20 plus years raising family. It's hard, especially when you remember the good times, but it's easy. They'll always be my little thems. Totally. Just last night, I had dinner with my ex-wife and all of my children and a few other assorted peoples. And so my eldest is I believe they, them. I've never really, the pronoun thing can be challenging. But I find that I still have trouble not using the pronouns that I'm used to. And it's not out of any desire to be malicious. And I absolutely know that they know this about me and that they're right there with me going, it's okay. You said the wrong thing. You're fine. But, human. I've got a pattern in my head and a way that I think about this child that is no longer valid. But it's hard for me to get over. So that's all I'm trying to do. And I know that's what you're trying to do. Totally get it, especially when you remember a thing at Xmas or otherwise. It just comes up. Yeah. And I was actually in the room with other people, and there was a hilarious sock misadventure occurring. I shit you not. And I just, without even thinking, I used the gendered pronoun of days gone by for my child, and immediately was like, oh, fuck. I'm getting better about trying not to like almost virtue signal to my kid that I'm like, see, I'm really trying. I fucked up, but I'm trying. Because that's not helpful either. Totally. I am Canadian. It's so good to see you. I actually was thinking about our years gone by the other day, and I was like, I hope I am Canadian's doing well. I didn't use that name in my head. I used your real people name, but no need to do that on stream. They always say you're okay, Dad, don't sweat it, but I really want to make it happen because they always been they. If they change their given name, I'd do it, so this is no big whoop. Exactly. And you know what? I guarantee you, if they changed their given name, I'm speaking from my own perspective, there would be times when I would use their given name and be like, oh, fuck, I'm sorry. But, it's a non-thing. The person who is my eldest child isn't defined by genitalia, isn't defined by name, isn't defined by pronouns, isn't defined by any of that. These are all things that I've built up over the years of how I can address and interact and correspond and whatever. And if I need to adapt any of those things, okay. I don't think that's a thing. I'm doing well, man. Likewise, Jim. I'm doing all right. I'll be doing a lot better in 7 minutes' time when I get back from this little break I'm going to take. My eldest would say she's asexual, intersectional feminist. Totally. And I'm like, I come from a generation much like yourself and many others where we didn't have these words. Like the idea of asexual wasn't a thing. Totally wasn't a thing. You just didn't have a sex drive. I think it's fucking rad that kids are developing language to describe all these things. One of the big problems I have with our modern discourse is that language is, as much as it's important to open up doors, it also can be very limiting if you don't have words. So like people get bunged up about the difference between bisexual and pansexual, and I'm no expert. I can't tell you what the actual answer to that shit is, but like, cool. I'm glad that people are able to have the word that best fits their world, and good. I'm for it. One corner to label, that is. Yes. And it's especially when it comes to labels like that. Like, if let's do a thought experiment. So I go to a bar. I'm going to a bar tonight to play an awesome show, raising money for the Bear Clan Patrol. And let's say that there's a person in the room who I don't know, who I've never met, and who is, let's just say that my vision of them, I read them in and I say, I believe that person was biologically born as a male, but is clearly presenting as a female. Now, I have a variety of things I can do. Probably the worst choice would be to insist that I'm correct and they're wrong. The best thing I could do would be just listen, interact with them like they were human beings, and take cues from them. So if they, say like the outright, these are my pronouns, then I should try and do that. And that's good. And if they, instead of saying their pronouns or whatever, if I'm engaged in conversation with them and somebody else is part of that conversation and they use some pronouns and maybe they're not the pronouns that I go, hey, those don't match the thing that I imagine to be potentially within their pants, then maybe I'm wrong. Or maybe who gives a shit? Those are the pronouns that the other person's using. They're probably the pronouns I should be using, unless the reaction is negative. All this shit. Like, it's just common decency. And when it comes to our kids, it's hard because we're so used. We've got all of this stuff in our heads about past and wonderful memories that we literally have to evolve. But we do that because we're decent. All right. I'm going to take another quick break. And when I get back, is there anything else I was going to chat about specifically? I did the If I Were God King. Talked about... Oh, you missed it. I Am Canadian and Nancy. I was like, having a mob come and overtake your government building and chant about murdering you, and then you pretend like they were just patriots and that what they were doing was A-okay with you, and you do that because you need their votes and you don't want to scare them away to vote some other way. That's the new definition of cuckold. Anyways, with that little jab, I'm gonna bring one of these back, and I'm gonna bring some of this back, and I will also be back in just a couple minutes. mic is live. My music is stopped. And the thing on my face can go away. Basic Humanities, BCP Kenny supporters, fuck them all. Fuck Kenny Cucks. Yeah, there's a whole lot of them here. That's a thing. Calgary historically, I'm going to crack open my beer. Calgary historically has always supported the most terrifying of all possible options in any scenario. When we elect almost exclusively based on like who is the worst person for the job. Let's go conservative year after year after year, and we get the rewards that come with that. It's a thing. I was super happy when we elected the NDP in the last federal or provincial government before the current one, and then super sad when we brought the Conservatives back. It actually meant I had to change jobs. I've mentioned this before, but I saw the writing on the wall. I was working for the government agency that runs the electrical grid. And they were like, I work in IT projects, and they were like, hey, all of that stuff about green energy, we're just going to stop doing that. And I was like, uh-oh, time for Jim to move on, because a lot of our projects were about adapting our grid to be able to better handle things like green energy and to better engage with producers of green energy. And I was like, there's a lot of project people that are employees that are going to suddenly be out of work. That means they're going to take my job, because I was a contractor and they were all employees, and that makes sense. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I moved on, and like a month later, a lot of other people moved on too. We vote against our interests because we don't understand our interests. I'm gonna make that the little title thing. I'm just gonna say, we don't understand our interests, and then I'm gonna fix that so it's not stupid like that. There we go. We don't understand our interests, so we fail miserably when we need to protect them. I joke about seeing like save our parks and save our water systems and stuff, and right beside them will be like a vote for Jeremy Farkas. Like, are you kidding? The guy who wants no government? Like, I don't even know how you do that when you're someone who wants to work in government and you're like, the government is terrible, we should not have it. Like, self-report much, homeboy? The fuck? I don't know. We do this thing. We do this thing where we vote in the worst possible choice, and then we go, who knew? Who knew that they would be the worst possible choice? Who knew that conservative politicians would act like conservative politicians? It's the fucking weirdest thing. Oh, mergers. Oh, didn't see it coming at all. And you're like, didn't you? Because I sure as fuck did. I don't know. It's a wacky world. A wacky world indeed. But we're making it through. Our economy hasn't collapsed completely yet. Capitalism is still in its death throes, but not dead yet. What could go wrong? I do find that this is that old Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. The times they are interested in. And I don't know what's going to come of it. I genuinely don't, but I hope things are going to get better. I hope landlords can start fucking off. I hope the government can start making wiser choices when it comes to spending money and long-term planning. And I hope that capitalism can figure out that left to its own devices, it's just going to eat its own children. They don't want government sticking their nose in their business, but Farkas is going into government to stick his nose in everyone else's business. Power-hungry asshole. I totally agree. I find him to be exactly what's wrong with Alberta politics. He is a vile little man with a vile little brain, and he will, if elected, he will take us as far back as he can. It's funny because conservative politics is about going back. And when we talk about going back, we're talking about going back for all the groups that have got forward in the last little while. So, ladies, talking about you. It's no surprise that the current conservative control in the U.S. Supreme Court has suddenly made Roe versus Wade kind of an on the table thing. This is how they do, and I don't get how people aren't picking this up, but they don't. They keep thinking, and there's so many single issue voters. I think COVID might have been even worse for that because people are so freaked out about government overreach that, you know, like Manchin and Cinema, like, fuck you guys. Fuck Manchin and Cinema. You're not doing your job. When the Republicans are voting in favor of this, shut the fuck up and vote for it, you dinks. Let's go back to old-fashioned values when things were the way they were supposed to be. Yeah, because in the Bible it says that women are dumb or something. And therefore, we should just totally go back in time like that. 1952, the atomic family. Oh, yes, yes. With my 2 children and my white picket fence and no coloreds as far as the eye can see. Like, is that really the world we want to live in? I know there are people that want to live in that world. They're called ethnostaters, and they should probably all fucking die. Dad is the head of the household. Children are seen and not heard. Mom is meek and submissive. You know, on that topic, I remember watching, what was that the TV show about the ad guy. You know exactly who the show I mean. It was quite big, and I can't think of the name of it for the life of me. But there's a scene, like fairly early on I was watching, and there's a scene where some kid's running in a house and bumps a table and like almost knocks over a vase or something, and random adult just like grabs him and gives him a swat on the ass, like, you know, hey, learn a lesson, goddammit, you go and play now. And I'm like, that is exactly fucked. Because that's totally how I grew up. Like, the idea, if I was at my friend's house and I fucked up, yeah, their parents were able to spank me too. Everybody's allowed to spank me. We didn't have any kind of autonomy over our bodies, and we certainly, you know, if I went to my parents and was like, would you believe that this other kid's parents paddled my ass? My dad wouldn't be like, hey, we need to figure this shit out. He'd be looking at me going like, well, what did you do, you dumb shit? God, can't take you anywhere. Oh, bad throw, sorry. Let's see. Pregnant and out of wedlock? Fuck you. He beat you. What did you do to deserve it? Yeah, totally. These are conservative values. And I don't want to live in that world. I like progress. I think progress is pretty fucking keen-o. I like the fact that my kids are growing up in a world where faggot isn't like a thing that you say to them. You know, that was the sound of my childhood. I got my ear pierced. My dad's like, oh, you're a faggot now. No wonder you got bad grades in school. Actually, Dad, putting a hole in my ear and putting a wiener in my bum are 2 very different things. Neither one is bad. But yeah, like that's the whole thing about conservatism, is just the head in the sand backwards thought of like there was a time when things were better. And nah, dude, there wasn't. There was a time when things were better by and large for white people. Certainly by and large for white dudes. Intersectionality. But Father Henry. I don't know Father Henry. I'm sure that's a reference to something, but I'm not picking it up. Yeah, like I actually kind of like the world we live in right now, where like indigenous people are having the first little like footsteps towards having self-determination, and things like we can have a conversation about land back, and we can have a conversation about how we're treating women and how we're treating people of color, and how we're, you know, maybe we need to revise the way the world is, and maybe we ought to do things to care for each other in ways that we haven't been before. I like that. I'd like to keep that. So all this talk about like conservatism just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's all kinds of people who are good people who are conservative. But I think if you're honest with yourself and you look at the society that you want to live in, you kind of have to come inevitably to, if you believe that kindness is a virtue and that looking out for people at their lowest is like a worthwhile thing. I'm sorry, but the current system isn't the one for you. Libertarians love talking about taxation and stuff, and I'm a filthy socialist, so I should agree that. I don't. I think that taxation, as long as we have a government, there is a need for taxation because people won't give. It's one thing to say, you know what, I go to work and sometimes I'll give a $5 to the down and out fella at the corner. He seems like a nice chap, a little bit sketchy. I don't look him in the eye ever, but I'll slide him a $5. I give $30 every year to the United Way. I sponsor that family in Namibia. My foster child. I don't know why the government needs to tell me what to do. Cool, great story, great. But here's the thing: people don't do that, and not at the level of someone's going to sponsor an infrastructure bill. That isn't a thing. We have bigger issues. So either we learn to, do this kind of work collectively, or we're going to need some form of government that is going to have to prioritize things like infrastructure over things like, I don't know, stupid shit that conservatives want. Wife beating. I personally, if presented with an option, a yes/no that was like on one side, there's wife beating, on the other side, it's like infrastructure, I'm going to take infrastructure. That's just me. I'm that guy. Only God can judge the state of the human soul, but it's pure nonsense to suggest we cannot and should not judge human behavior. Henry set off a societal debate and firestorm when he issued a letter January 13th calling ministerial guidelines to help schools create policies to protect the rights and safety of transgender and other LGBTQ students and teachers totalitarian. So if I'm reading that correctly, he was like upset about the fact that there were transgender kids and we were going to like do things to help them, if I'm reading that correctly. Yeah, that sounds very conservative, right? Here in Alberta, that whole GSA debate where like schools are required to call the parents of a kid who's going to a gay straight alliance. First off, that doesn't mean your kid's gay. Your kid just could be supportive of gay people. Second off, if your kid is gay, that's up to him to tell his parents or her parents or their parents, right? That's not fucking anyone's business but that kid. What it boils down to, I happen to know roughly the sexuality of all my children. And I mean sexuality in terms of attractions and that kind of stuff. I happen to know it. It's still none of my fucking business. If one of my children chooses to have the sex with a person who I would not have prescribed for them, it's probably going to be all right. It's probably none of my fucking business. Another gem. The Bishop of Calgary admits he made a mistake when he hired a convicted sex offender who returned to the priesthood. But he maintains his mistake was not the hiring of Neil, but his failure to consult parishioners at St. Patrick's Catholic Church about the decision. See, that's the thing. Conservatives love transparency. As a child rapist, I hope that's all right with everybody. That would be an okay thing in their minds, as long as there was a consultation to say, oh, a child molester, then that, yeah, okay, we can either choose to hire him or not. That would be better than just hiring the child molester and not telling anyone. Here's a third option. Don't fucking hire the child molester. Maybe that's a direction we could go in. Maybe that's a thing we could do. Maybe we could decide as a society not to hire child molesters. Seems a thing. God, I feel like fucking Paul, what was it? Paul Hallelujah? The guy who wants to brain scan, like this guy's running for mayor right now and wants to brain scan all of the public servants to find the pedos and root them out. Not scary at all. All right, I think we're getting to the point now where I'm going to do my weekly humiliations. Oh, wait, before I do. And his deflection of the Catholic Church role in residential. Oh, this will be good. Residential schools. The federal government never established an adequate set of standards and regulations to guarantee the health and safety of residential school students. This failure occurred despite the fact that the government had the authority to establish those standards, Henry quoted the report. Hey, Father Hank, here's an idea. You got this book of morality that you think is pretty poggers. Anywhere in that, does it say that you should like wipe out a race? Actually, it probably does, because that's a fucked up book. So maybe he's not wrong. Maybe the morality of the Catholic Church wasn't up to the task and couldn't have been up to the task without government saying, stop murdering people, don't bury their bodies and then tell their families they went for a little walkie walk. Maybe that's valid. And I'm obviously very tongue-in-cheek here. No standard, therefore bad behavior is okay. Wait, don't bring the Bible into this. The Bible's a standard I judge you on, not the church, you godless lefty. It's true. And as a lefty, and an atheist, I really enjoy when people use the Bible to justify their horrors. That's just me, though. All right, we're going to do some humiliations. You guys good for that? I actually am going to sing 3 different songs. And it's because all 3 of them I was poking around and saw, and I was like, I want to sing that song. And I don't know if I can do any of them, but we'll go to the weekly humiliation screen, and then my children can deal with the fact that I'm awkwardly singing and they can't even hear the backdrop music, and that's fucking life, children. It's fucking life. Get a helmet. All right, it's our first song. We'll call this one the good karaoke. We're going to do the Coasters Down in Mexico. Except that I hit play. Oh, it's muted. That's probably not. Okay, we'll start that again. In Mexicali, there's a crazy little place that I know, where the drinks are hotter than the chili sauce, and the boss is a cat named Joe. Wears a red bandana, plays a cool piano in a honky tonk out in Mexico. He wears a purple sash and a black mustache in a honky tonk out in Mexico. The first time that I saw him, he was sitting on a piano stool. I said, tell me, man, when does the fun begin? He just winked his eye and said, man, be cool. I can't do that low. Red bandana, plays a cool piano in a honky tonk out in Mexico. He wears a purple sash and a black mustache in a honky tonk out in Mexico. All of a sudden in walks a chick. Joe starts playing on a Latin kick. Around her waist she wore 3 fishnets. She started dancing with the castanets. I didn't know just what to expect. She threw her arms around my neck. We started dancing all around the floor until she did a dance I never saw before. So if you're south of the border, I mean down in Mexico, I think, and you man, don't hesitate, just look up a cat named Joe. He wears a red bandana, plays a cool piano in a honky tonk out in Mexico. He wears a purple sash and a black mustache in a honky tonk out in Mexico. Aww, they have like a poor image from Death Proof. That was not the best I've ever done anything. Alright. It's gonna just go on for a while. Like another 20 seconds. So we're just gonna skip. This next song, Bella Ciao. Oh shit, I gotta do a thing real quick because I'm gonna sing like the lyrics if I can. Because this is in Italian. I'm gonna try and sing the lyrics that Chumbawamba put to the song. And we'll find out if I can do that. And I totally forgot to get that set up. So, and then I think at the end, I think that there's more words in this version. So I'm just going to sing the Italian, and you can laugh at me for not knowing Italian. Sound good? All right. We'll see if this works. The world is waking outside my window. Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Drags my senses into the sunlight, for there are things that I must do. Wish me luck now, I have to leave you. Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. With my friends now to the city, shake the gates of hell. And I will tell them, we will tell them, Bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, 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 that our sunlight is not for French. And then one last song I'm going to sing, and then we're going to call it. This is a Frank Turner song. This is all in English, I think. I don't know if I can sing this one either. We'll find out. I like this song, though, so hopefully I don't cock up too bad. Frank Turner is typically higher than I can sing, so this might be shit. We had a difficult winter. Shit. We had a rough few months. When the storms came in off the coast, it felt like they broke everything on us at once. It's easy enough to talk about blitz spirit when you're not holding the roof and knee deep in it. The pictures and the papers got ruined by the rain, and we wonder if I'll ever get dry again. I don't want to spend the whole of my life indoors, laying low, waiting on the next storm. I don't want to spend the whole of my life inside. I want to step out, face the sunshine. Imagine how this fits in the world of COVID. We lost faith in the omens. We lost faith in the gods. We just ended up clutching at the empty rituals like gamblers clutching long odds. And I don't care what the weatherman is saying, 'cause the last time that I saw him, he was on his knees, he was praying. Preachers and the scientists got soaked just the same, and we wonder if it ever gets dry again. I don't want to spend the whole of my life indoors, laying low, waiting on the next storm. I don't want to spend the whole of my life inside. I want to step out, face the sunshine. So open the shutters, fuck. Raise up the mast. Rejoice, rebuild, the storm is past. Cast off the crutches, count up the cost. Rejoice, rebuild, the storm has passed. Rejoice, rebuild, the storm has passed. We'll spend the whole of my life indoors, laying low, waiting on the next storm. Don't want to spend the whole of my life inside. I want to step out, face the sunshine. I'm not gonna live the whole of my life indoors. I'm gonna step out and face the next storm. Alright, that was my weekly humiliations. All good. Okay, so that pretty much is where that ends and stuff. Alright, so if you're in the Calgary area and you're wanting to come check it out, I'm playing a show tonight at the border crossing. It will sound a hell of a lot better than that because I am not singing. My band Bodies of Everest, raising money for Bear Clan YYC, Bear Clan Patrol Calgary, whatever. Fucking awesome group. Deserve all the love, all the support. If you want to send them money, you can always do an email transfer to bearclanyyc@gmail.com, I believe. Look it up on Facebook. It's there. They're fantastic, and they deserve all of the support and all of the love and all of the things. Yeah. It's been a fun chat. We had conversations about a plethora of topics. Mostly it was just me being me. And hopefully, if you're new to the show, whatever this is, if you're new to it and you liked it, click follow. And if you didn't like it, well, what are you doing? Why are you wasting your time? That's silly talk. And yeah, that's kind of that. So I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Me, I'm going to finish off this here Lucky Lager, and I'm going to have a little nap because I'm old. And then I'm going to go to the show and play some music and kick some butt. And it should be awesome. Again, thank you guys for joining me. It's been fun. I hope it's been fun for you. It's been fun for me. All right. And I'm out.